We are about 10 minutes late. I don't know if you Okay, yeah, that's fine. And film?
GPS signal lost.
You know, so we have these, so many experiences that we have in the same company, and there's no change. And when I hear about door knocking, what doors are you knocking, you know, what? So we want to see something different. You know, I think we would benefit a lot if we came together. We have a lot of company. You know, but, a lot of people are saying, like, it's either the school, the city, or the police, take things very personal. Very, very personal. Like, very personal needs happen, you know, they're not asking. If I see it outside, I say, hi, you know. We listen out, and we live in San Antonio, we live in San Antonio. But when you're in the city, or when you're in the school board, or, it's a totally different world. You feel like you never listen to. You have to play acts crazy, you know, bring the angry black woman out. Then, there's a lot of protection. Say more about that. You want to take one? There's a lot of people being protected.
I think Hal was talking about what was brought up with regard to if you look at the demographics, how much money goes into the police department? So it's about 75%. And then when you look at the demographics of how policing is done, for example, it looks like that 75% is more of a dominant culture that's being taken care of or catered to. So it seems like that's why the voices are not heard, even though we don't account for just 25% in this community of immigrants. So is that what you're?
So when you say 75%, when you is the budget data we just looked at, I understand that this is down under 45% now.
The budget for the police?
So, the general fund is 75%. The police are 75% of that. The police budget is 3.9 million. The general fund was changed when grants, which normally went into the general fund, ended up going into the police fund. So that money all became directly allocated to the police force. Then there's also, I believe, like 200,000 that was used for purchases and other things. And the total police spending was 3.9 million out of 10 million, like 10.1 million. And I think that the amount there, you also have there's allocations out of the general fund still for the police department, which come out of the general fund as well. But I believe that's only like 10% of the general fund. And I'm thinking those are the numbers, but this is just kind of going off of memory. I don't have them right in front of me right now.
So I think that's still around 40-something.
So of the allocation, yeah. So we would be at 75% of the general fund is coming out of the taxes, 75% of that. I don't quite understand how those numbers ended up getting up to 3.9 million, but because that 75% of the 75% would end up being 3/4 of 7.5 million, which would be less than the 3.9 million, which are put into the budget. But then you also have the additional funds. You could take in the grants, which were normally allocated to the general fund, which would have been an addition, basically $8 million right there, have been used for the police funding over the last year. But that's not being counted as something that is part of the overall general budget of the city. So,
And that's just a general broad overview right now, because we didn't come to this meeting to specifically talk about the budget. If you wanna do that, we can surely do that.
I'm just asking to clarify your statement that 75% of the city's funds goes to the police department, but demographically it doesn't serve, it only serves some, and so I'm just wondering where you're getting that.
I'm hoping that that has been clarified. If you want just a conversation about the budget, we can
No,
certainly have that.
I'm good with budget, but your statement then about demographically,
That he's already explained that, so if you wanna
you
have a
also said
conversation.
something about who is police service, what part of the community the police service.
Correct.
Where are you getting that data from?
I'm getting that data from the budget, from my lived experience here in St. Anthony, for what I
I just
see.
wanted to know.
So all of those things together. But my offer is still on the table, if you wanna have a meeting and talk about the budget. I did get some additional financial documents, which we did look at, and that is directly where we're getting this from the finance director of St. Anthony Village. She sent that the very next day, so she sent it last Wednesday.
Sure.
And I didn't even ask for it, I thought it was
your
that
data's
was
coming
asked for.
from,
So
or the state.
my data is coming from the city directly, from Wednesday, directly from the finance director. That's where my data is coming from. And then there's also my lived experience here, okay? And there's also what I see with my eyes, which does matter as well. I shouldn't have to come with data, but as you see, we came with that as well.
So, I'm not questioning where you got your data source, I'm just questioning, I have a different interpretation. I don't think 75% of the full city budget goes for police. But that's just a difference in opinion. on how
And
we're
you
viewing
just
that
have a
data.
brand new contract for 10 years with Exxon for, and you're saying that that's not the case. I mean, the facts write themselves, you know?
I think those two things can be true at the same time, where it's 75% of the budget is not for police. So there is a new Axon body cam contract, because I think we can all agree that body cams are important. We want our police to be documenting everything, so body cams as well. I don't think there was, right, I don't imagine that there was, that you're asking that there not be body cams.
I think that what's being pointed out is that this is more of a policy conversation. Like, what are the policies, right, when funding is being allocated to departments that make it look like differential policing in the streets? What are those policies? And my husband and other people were having a conversation in our group about, it looks like an incredible amount of money. So that is something that's gonna be brought up, because it's so much of our taxes, which it shouldn't really be. It's just very odd. It's just very odd.
How do you mean odd?
I'm sorry?
How do you mean odd?
I mean odd as in, how would it not be odd that there's such a large portion of our taxes that goes for services that don't seem to serve us? Like, that's odd.
Are you speaking specifically about the Axon contract?
That's a part of what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking specifically about how much money the police is getting, the police department itself. There also seems to be an issue with, there's nowhere to appeal past the chief of police. So whoever that chief of police is, when it gets appealed to the city manager, it seems as though the way that the structure is, I'm talking about policy, there's no oversight. There's no actual investigation of an investigation, even if it breaks policy. Like, if there was a whole firearms incident, and that was not investigated the way that the policies are written, that those things get investigated, and the city manager rubber stamped what that was from the chief of police, who used to be the captain here.
Can you, talk about that? I don't know.
Not in this open space, no, not as sitting here looking for a job with AI, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Okay, will you be willing to shoot me an email about it, just so
I would be willing to meet with you with Howell to talk about different experiences, absolutely, not just ours, because I don't like censoring myself, I know that sounds weird, but this is not just about me resolving what's going on with me. There really is an incredible amount of people that are more vulnerable than I am, who are fighting for their lives in St. Anthony, and it makes no sense. This should not be happening.
Great. I would be more than happy to meet anybody who's willing. Just
And
like
this
it's a matter of
is interfaith, this is not just, this is Muslims, this is Christians, this is Hindu, this is not just, but the thing that's in common is we're recent immigrants. That's what we have in common here. We have in common, it's so strange. It's like the same type of neighbors, it's so strange, the same type of response from the city and the different departments. Throughout administrations, different, changes in administrations and in administrations and leadership here. It's very odd. It's very odd.
You would speak, you would go to the school district, or any of the school, there's an issue with the school. Someone in the community, somehow, the city knows about it. Hey, you know, hey, this. How is that possible?
Sorry, say that again. So
I would have an incident at the school, my child would, or something's going on at the school, right?
like a regular, not a school board, just
No, the school.
teachers call you or whatever.
Yeah, and then an incident happened, and they're going, and someone in the community, someone in the city knows about it. How do you?
I have an example to
Get out
piggyback
there.
off of
That's
that.
what we go through.
Yeah, I have an example
I'll
to
get,
piggyback off
I've
of
got
that.
a call from Tammy. Hey, you know, this is what happened, you know,
From the school or from community?
from community, center from the city.
Yeah, how will I,
Talk about,
we talked
you know, I
about
heard
that.
about this, you know, so my thing is, we're tired, you don't trust me, we're tired. There's a lot of people that want to come to this, here, you can't trust coming to the schools, you know what happened. You know, there's a lot of people that don't have their documentation, but they wouldn't want to come home. A lot of people in the city.
Where would they feel comfortable living? Seems
I
like
mean,
they
I
should be.
personally wouldn't. No, I personally wouldn't, ask them,
So I would love to,
Let me just, if I could just clarify something really quickly from what Howard said to piggyback. So, when we had, I think, our eldest moved to middle school, and, we went and brought in documentation to sign up to play sports and stuff, like a health physical from the doctor. And there was a person that was sitting behind the desk at the secretary area at the middle school, who we said this goes to the nurse, and she grabbed the documentation, pulled it out, opened it, and began to read this medical document from our child. Come to find out, she's a volunteer. She's another community, parent who's doing this. And so what I'm thinking of as we're continuing the conversations is this really just has to do with policy. There are stories behind it, but moving past like the listening sessions where it's just venting into actually fixing some of these things is important to.
so what I'm asking, why I'm asking is, because you both mentioned, how you mentioned at least 3 incidents with police, inappropriate police
Oh,
responses.
I have.
And I'm sure that there's
I have
more.
way more reports
And
than-
so, I'm a prosecutor, I work with police regularly, I've been a public servant for my entire career. If there is a course of conduct that's like this, then the first thing that I wanna do is go yell at a whole bunch of people about inappropriate responses. So if there is a way that I can gather, I know it feels like it's anecdotal, but if there is story after story after story after story after story, then someone gets to answer questions about why this is the response that we're seeing. So do we think there is a way that either stories can be compiled and handed off, or I can come listen, and I can go wherever people feel safe?
We did that 10 years ago.
But I'm different, please give me a
No, I
chance.
get it, but it's the culture of saying that, you know how tiring it is to come and speak every time?
I can imagine. As the first generation brown female who lives in a white male dominated industry, not being listened to is something I have lots and lots of experience with, which is why I feel very strongly that even these small stories are really important, because this is your lived experience, right? You wanna live in St. Anthony. Living means not just the police, you can trust the police to investigate a crime, but more like you feel valued as a member, right?
It's more the culture,
Yeah.
it's the people, the group in St. Anthony that makes these decisions that the police find. Not I'm a taxpayer, I'm
Yeah.
you know, the number of things to listen to my houses. I'm not saying no, but there's a lot of decisions being made. By a small group of some leaders.
So, you know, I'm sorry to hear.